All right, I want to get those out of the way before we, talk about really what's at stake over the next 24 hours, Bryn. And, we know it's looming with Nvidia earnings. You're obviously in the stock. Interesting price action today, too, in the Nasdaq, which is attempting to go positive. And if it gets there, it's going to be because of stocks like Nvidia, which, right hugging the flat line today, but right around that 950 level. How about Apple, that comeback that stock's had above 192? What do you think's really at stake with these earnings that are looming?
I mean, I think the earnings Oscars are tomorrow, and Best Picture will go to Nvidia. I mean, we all know the estimates are 242% revenue growth with 412% earnings growth. And so I think they're going to continue to have another crushing quarter. I think between Jensen and Satya, they're like two rock stars that he's going to have an awesome earnings call. He's going to sprinkle in a bunch of other companies that will have a halo effect tomorrow when after the earnings come out. And so I just think this stock continues to be somewhat underappreciated. I mean, it's up 90% year to date, so I say underappreciated.
Yeah, underappreciated.
But
I can't help but laugh.
Well, let me explain, put some context. Yesterday, Dan Niles was on one of the shows, and he had a really good point that Nvidia is actually trading at 15% below its 5-year PE average. And so that's what I'm talking about. And so I still think that there's this sentiment that sometime in the next quarter or 2 quarters, Nvidia is going to start acting like a traditional cyclical semiconductor company where all of a sudden earnings and revenues start growing at a slower pace and decelerating. I think that absolutely will happen, but I don't think it's going to happen until maybe the back half of this year or 2025. So I think you'll see a one handle, 1,000 on the stock before you see it 800.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting 24 hours for certainly holders of Nvidia like you and Josh and Jim. What do you feel like is at stake as we look ahead to tomorrow?
Well, a lot's at stake, and the question is what's going to happen. I totally agree with Bryn's assessment of the company itself. As far as the cyclicality, I do think the cyclicality will assert itself, but not in the next 1 to 2 quarters. I think maybe in the next 3 to 4 quarters. That's obviously not the near term. But, Scott, to answer your question, as I think about the stock right now, I think about this quarter, the estimates from a year ago, and remember, it was a year ago when they had that first blowout quarter that just all of a sudden made people like me understand this was a different company than the usual. Those estimates for this quarter are up 230% from a year ago. That's a lot. Okay, they're up 20% in the year to date. And my point on this, we all know what the stock has done is I would not be surprised, again, to Bryn's point, if you have a beat and raise tomorrow afternoon. I would not be surprised if the stock popped in the after hours. And I also wouldn't be surprised if at the end of the week it actually trailed off a little bit. Let me be clear. I'm not negative on the stock. I'm long the stock. But there is a point where you have to ask how much of this is priced in.
Yeah.
I know the earnings estimates going out the next 5 years are 31% annualized growth. That's going to be hard to come by for the next 5 years. Next 2 to 3 quarters, sure.
The growth now versus then, so to speak, I think we have a graphic to kind of show you what is expected. Earnings are expected to be 5 times greater than they were last year. Mm-hmm. Revenues are poised to more than triple from a year ago. There we go. That's on our wall. That yes, we think it's the most impactful earnings report on the S&P right now, just given what that stock has done. It's a near double already in 5 months, and how much it's responsible for the look. I mean, there's a fair amount of hype around AI, but they're realizing it too, and the way they're monetizing it. So that's why, Steph, there's so much at stake, especially when some are suggesting, boy, the Nasdaq has gone from oversold to overbought seemingly overnight.
Yeah, well, look, Nvidia is 5% weight of the S&P 500, but obviously AI touches so many different companies throughout technology, throughout other sectors in the market, throughout the economy, and we're in the second or third innings. I think there are a lot of various different ways you can play that theme. I'm not in Nvidia, as you know, but I am in other names that have done quite well over the last 2 years as well. So I think you've got to pick your spots. I think the expectations are quite high for Nvidia, especially because the hyperscalers gave you that information. They told you that the 4 big hyperscalers, Amazon, Meta, Google, and Microsoft, are going to spend $177 billion in CapEx for cloud and generative AI this year alone. That's just enormous, right? And then global CapEx is actually going to grow $225 billion this year alone. So clearly that benefits a lot of companies. Nvidia is included in that. I think as a result, if let's just say it doesn't meet these aggressive expectations and the stock falls, I really do think you're going to see buyers come in. So I don't think it's going to be down for long, especially given the growth rates that we just heard that Bryn was talking about, Jimmy was talking about as well. So I'm just choosing to play it a different way, but certainly it is a very, very important report.
Yeah. There's no doubt. By the way, Evercore ISI, long and strong into the print, outperform 1160 is the price target. So, Josh, as you know, you're our guy on Nvidia. How good does this have to be? We know the bar is high. How could it not be? Stocks, up 200-something% over the last year, up almost a double, as I said, in some 5 months.
The bar's been high, Playboy, and you know what? Every quarter, we're told this is the quarter that something's going to go horribly wrong, and it just hasn't happened yet. Look at the last time they reported, which was February. Earnings per share came in at $5.16. The estimate was $4.64. Do you have any idea how many times earnings were revised higher to get to that $4.64? And they still stepped right over it like it wasn't even there. $22.1 billion in revenue versus $20.6. They crushed that too. The stock went up 16.5%. In response, it had its market cap growth in that single day of $276 billion, the most any company has had in one-day market cap growth ever. So, it's not like Nvidia is it's pretty shaky historically. We know what happens if they come in better than expected. Now, to the earlier point being made, Nvidia is already the 3rd best performer in the S&P. In fact, the only 2 better performers, SMCI is up 224%, Vista Corp, which is a utility, is up 140%, Nvidia is up 90%, but all 3 of them are up on AI stuff. So, it's not underappreciated by the market how good Nvidia is. So I'm trying to maintain a balance. I'm trying to maintain a balanced point of view. I highly doubt this company will come out, beat earnings, and then have anything other than positive things to say, about the second half of the year, given the rate at which people and corporations are spending on this stuff. What we don't know is how much is already priced in. And that, frankly, to me, is the real thing that's going to be revealed tonight.
Yeah, been crazy tomorrow. Crazy. The stock, goes down to 750, and now it's at 950, seemingly in snap of the fingers.